follow-up of where that is?
Yes, so legally, we can do that right now. What we've worked with Knight County is to work on the codification to make sure that any ordinances that you pass go into your own book. So at this point, we could start working on codification and passing ordinances and all of the authorities granted to this body by the act that created the water board. We can do that today. What we wanted to do, and part of the delay, was to make sure that myself was up to speed and that my communications with Knight County's administration was sufficient. It took a while for me to get my act together. And I also wanted to make sure that the ordinances that we do pass don't get lost up in other chapters in the book. I would prefer the water district's ordinances to be codified together, so that when one goes and looks at water district codes and ordinances that this body has passed, they all be coordinated together in one and not polka dotted throughout the Knight County code. So that was the intent and the reason for the delay. And your answer is, we're ready to rock. Now, I need to work with, there'll be challenges when you guys get together and pass your ordinances. There'll be hurdles that I need to learn, because it'll be the first time I've done that, but we're ready to go now.
Okay, just a follow-up question on that. So the process that I would understand is that if we proposed a rule and we agreed to that rule, then would it go to the district attorney to verify the language?
So,
and then come back to us at a subsequent meeting? Or?
I'll give you my best sequence here. This body would propose an ordinance, we would discuss it, it would go to district attorney's office for legal review. Once it had passed that legal review, it would come back to this body for passage. If you passed it, it would go to the Knight County Commission for ratification. None of our ordinances go into effect until the Knight County Commission has reviewed them and given them the green light. Once that's done, and the County Commission has approved of the ordinance, then we would go through the public process of having the hearings and having, I believe it's 3 meetings before an ordinance can become effective. But again, those are new lessons that I'll have to learn, that we'll learn together. But I believe there'll need to be necessarily, I think, 3 hearings, public hearings, before that ordinance will become effective.
If I may, the first would be set a time and date, and then ordinance is attached so everybody can review it. And then we have the public hearing, and it goes into effect on whatever date that particular ordinance says within its body. So it's 2.
2, not 3.
Okay, so the first meeting, then, we would not as a board have to approve it before it goes to the district attorney for review. We just informally agree, oh, we think this is good language, and then that gets sent.
A board member would bring that concept of that language forward, we would consider it, and once we have a board approval that the language is something that the entire board would like to pursue, then we would take it to the district attorney's office for review to make sure that everything's good to go. Once it's met the muster of legal burden, then we would go to the next step, which is to pass it and then move it to the water district, or move it to the Knight County Commission.
Thank you.
I apologize for my lack of experience there, Bruce, but it's a process that you have to learn it on the job.
Yeah.
Any other board members?
Yeah, have you had a chance to check up on the water coming out of the one canyon you said over there by the Tacoma Highway? You said there's quite a little bit of water coming down through that one channel, snow mill.
I have been spending quite a bit of time up on the mountain. We are monitoring, and we are taking scientific readings on the flows of, which has been very rewarding. I must say for myself, Mr. Klinke has taken me under his wing a little bit and is teaching me field work and scientific gathering. It's been really, really interesting. And yes, Mr. Goodhart, we are monitoring the considerable amount of water coming out of Trout Canyon with various methods, clandestine and otherwise.
Little boats?
Yeah, I see some of that stuff's coming underneath the highway from there It basically goes towards what, the playa there on that part of the valley, is that what it does?
Yes, sir. The water that you're talking about is called intermittent springs. It's not the same water flow that actually feeds the community of Trout Canyon. It's a separate water flow that's coming down below. I won't get into the geology of it, but yes, that water that's crossing under the highway there is intermittent springs, and it does flow through the Yellowhand solar construction site and makes its way down to the playa, down towards what they call Stump Springs.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any other items from
No,
board?
I'm gonna ask one other question. The well monitoring, I know that's an ongoing program. Are you gonna have like a specific, how would I say this? A specific meeting, like once a year, to come before the board and say, okay, this is the results of well monitoring, you know, our newest information. Obviously, we're really curious because of the cloud seeding, and if that's showing up at all in the well monitoring data.
I would say that that's a great idea, Bruce, and that's something I'd give to Mr. Klinke. So that might be one of my first assignments to the science director, is to bring a report. He works very diligently on that data, and we've just recently updated the map and put a link on the front page of our website. So that information is readily available to the public and yourselves, but I believe that an annual report on the status of, and we're working on some other things that are related to the well level monitoring program, which includes wellhead protection and identifying and locating, because part of your budget is locating and securing new well sites, and it's a hard project that John and I are working on. You'll see some action because I'm going to want to, in the future as we move forward, I'm going to want to lock down those monitoring wells, because right now some of them are private wells that we monitor at the grace of the owner. And as properties change hands, that can change our data set. So it's important and critical, in fact, that we lock down our monitoring wells, and that's part of what you're talking about. And that report that you're requesting will include that information as to where I'm at, as how many wells we capped. Because you'd be surprised how many wells, Mr. Jackson would probably speak to this, and Ms. Strickland as well. There's wells up on the fan that are just open, just big wellheads, and people can dump material and rocks and various stuff you don't want in a well in some of those. So it's important to me that as I get my act together, that I go out and actively cap those wells. I don't want, we have residents that, or not residents, we have folks that live on the fan, and some of those people are getting into those wells, and it's a problem. Not just their waste on the ground, which is a problem, but if their waste is going in those wells, that's a real problem for me. So that's part of, to answer your question, part of your report on the well level monitoring program will be other than just what wells we dug and where the water levels are. There's a lot more that goes to that well level monitoring program than just the graphics that result.
Okay.
Any other board members? Hearing none, I'll close item 13, and item 14 is adjourned. It is 11 minutes past 11.